He opened the door expecting an ordinary day, but instead, he came face to face with a woman from his past carrying a secret that would change his life forever. A woman he hadn't seen in more than 10 years. A woman who once knew every broken part of him. And now, she was standing there with words that would stop his world cold. I want my son to know who his father is. In that one moment, everything changed. The anger, the confusion, the memories he tried so hard to bury. All of it came rushing back. Because sometimes, the past doesn't knock politely. Sometimes, it walks right in and tells you that you have a son. Tim stood there in complete silence, staring at her like he was trying to figure out if this was real or some kind of cruel joke. His face was hard, his voice sharp, but underneath it all was shock so deep he could barely breathe. He hadn't seen her in over a decade. Back then, life was messy. He was younger, reckless, and far from the man he had become. Their relationship had burned fast and ended even faster, leaving behind nothing but bad memories and unanswered questions. And now she was here, standing on his porch like the past had never left, calmly telling him that he had a son. Tim let out a dry laugh, the kind people use when they don't know what else to do. He asked her if she really expected him to believe that after all these years. Why now? Why show up after 10 or 12 years with something this huge? Why wait this long? She looked nervous, like she had rehearsed this moment 100 times and still wasn't ready for it. She explained that for years, she convinced herself she was doing the right thing by staying away. Tim's life was unstable back then. He was drinking too much. The moment Tim said yes, everything became real. There was no more hiding behind shock, no more pretending this was just some strange conversation that would disappear by morning. Now, there was going to be a meeting. A real one. Somewhere out there, a boy named Shane was about to come face to face with the man who was supposed to be his father. And Tim had no idea if that moment would heal something or break it even more. For the next few days, his mind wouldn't rest. He kept asking himself the same questions over and over. What do you even say to your son when you've missed his entire childhood? Do you start with, "I'm sorry"? Do you explain the truth? Do you try to act normal when nothing about it feels normal? Every answer felt wrong. Tim was used to handling problems he could see. An injured horse, a broken fence, a storm rolling in. Those things had solutions. But this was emotional, messy, and uncertain. There was no manual for meeting a son you never knew existed. He tried to keep busy, but even the ranch couldn't distract him now. Every quiet moment became another chance for doubt to creep in. The next weekend came slower than Tim expected, but faster than he was ready for. All week, he carried a strange mix of nerves and hope, like he was standing on the edge of something important, without knowing exactly what would happen next. He kept replaying that small smile Shane gave before leaving, and those simple words. Yeah, I'd like that. It wasn't much, but for Tim, it meant everything. It meant the door wasn't closed. It meant there was still a chance. This time, when Shane arrived at the ranch, the tension was different. Still there, but lighter. Less like strangers meeting, and more like two people trying to figure out where they belonged in each other's lives. Tim had planned too much in his head. What they should do, what he should say. But the moment Shane stepped out of the truck, he realized none of that mattered. What mattered was showing up. Being there. Consistently. That was something he could control. They spent the day working around the ranch. Nothing dramatic. Feeding horses, fixing a loose fence, checking the pasture. Ordinary things. But sometimes, ordinary things build the strongest connections. Tim showed Shane how to hold the tools properly, how to stay calm around nervous horses, how patience usually works better than force. Shane listened, sometimes joking, sometimes challenging him just enough to make Tim laugh. There was stubbornness there, The same stubbornness Tim knew too well. But instead of frustrating him, it made him smile. It felt familiar. At lunch, sitting outside with simple sandwiches and the sun overhead, the conversation shifted again. It wasn't just about horses or ranch work anymore. Shane started talking about school, about the subject.
Time didn't fix everything, but it softened the edges. The sharp confusion of the beginning had slowly turned into something steadier. Life at the ranch no longer felt like Tim was walking on unstable ground. It felt shared. Shane wasn't just a visitor now. He belonged there in a way that didn't need constant explanation anymore. And that alone was something Tim never thought he would get to experience. But even when things feel stable, the past doesn't stay silent forever. It came back one afternoon in a way Tim didn't expect. A man showed up at the ranch looking for him. Not angry, not loud, just serious. He introduced himself as someone who had known Tim back in the years he tried so hard to forget. The kind of person who didn't bring comfort with him, only reminders. Tim felt it immediately in his chest. That old version of himself, the one he had worked so hard to leave behind. Shane noticed the change in him right away. Kids are good at that, reading emotion even when nothing is said. He watched from a distance as Tim spoke to the man, his posture tighter, his voice lower. Something was wrong. Something from before. After the man left, Shane didn't ask right away. He waited until later that night, when things were quieter. Who was that? Tim paused. He had two choices. Avoid it or be honest. He chose honesty. Someone from a long time ago, he said, before I was the person you know now. Shane studied him carefully. Did you do something bad? The question wasn't accusing, just curious, but it still hit hard. Tim nodded slowly. Yeah, I made a lot of mistakes. Some I'm not.
The next weekend didn't arrive quietly. It came with something different in the air, something Tim couldn't immediately explain. Shane showed up earlier than usual, but he wasn't alone this time. There was hesitation in the way he stepped out of the truck, like he'd been thinking about this moment all the way there, second-guessing it, then deciding to come anyway. Tim noticed it instantly. Before he could even greet him properly, Shane said, "I brought someone." That stopped him for a second. From the passenger side, another boy stepped out, around Shane's age, quiet, uncertain, watching everything carefully, like he wasn't sure if he belonged there. Shane scratched the back of his neck. He's a friend from school. Tim nodded slowly, understanding more than Shane probably realized. This wasn't just a visit anymore. This was Shane bringing his life into Tim's world, testing where the boundaries were, seeing what kind of place this really was. "All right," Tim said calmly. "Welcome." No questions, no pressure, just space. The boys stayed close to each other at first, unsure how to act. Tim didn't force conversation. He just let things unfold naturally, the way they usually did at the ranch. Work had a way of breaking awkwardness without trying too hard. He handed them small tasks around the barn, nothing complicated, just simple things. And slowly, as minutes passed, the tension started to fade. A few short comments turned into small laughs. The sound of hesitation began to disappear. Shane kept watching Tim, almost like he was checking something silently. Not doubt exactly, more like curiosity. Like he was trying to see if the man he was getting to know would act differently in front of someone new. Tim didn't change. That mattered.
The days after that felt different in a way Tim couldn't quite explain at first. Not louder, not easier, just more certain. Like something inside his life had finally stopped drifting and started to settle into place. Shane wasn't just part of weekends anymore in his thoughts. He was part of plans, part of expectations, part of tomorrow. But even when things start to feel steady, life has a way of testing how strong that steadiness really is. It happened on an ordinary morning. Tim was out near the barn when he noticed Shane standing a little farther away than usual. Not involved, not distracted by work, just still, watching something in the distance. That alone was enough for Tim to know something was off. He walked over slowly. What's going on? Shane didn't answer right away. He kept his eyes forward,